Good evening and welcome to another edition of Speaker Circle. This evening, I am so honored to have with me Mr. Eric Thomas, who is the co-founder and chief influencer of Influence Me Institute. Eric is going to talk to us about some phenomenal things this evening. So welcome.
How you doing? Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for coming here and sharing your time and your talents with us.
Thank you for having me. This is an extreme honor. Thank you so much.
The honor and the pleasure is all mine. So, Eric, tell us a little bit about your background. I mean, you were phenomenal and you have such a dynamic story. So, share with our viewers a little bit about who you are.
Yeah, well, a country boy from Gainesville, Florida.
Go Gators.
I knew that was coming. I knew that was coming. And I am the fifth of six children from a relatively large family, and third generation pastor. I pastored for about 14 years. I think
Wow.
it was 2013 when I made my exodus from standing in front of the pulpit and transferred to the marketplace. I just felt that was the next place God had called me to. No background in business, knew nothing about business. It was just a lot of they say either you win or you lose. I say you win or you learn, right? Because there are really no losses.
I love that. Every loss is a lesson.
Absolutely. And that's all. I just kept capitalizing on the lessons from some of the I guess we can call them failures, but just extreme faith. I just trust God for whatever He's telling me to do, that He's not going to let me fall flat on my face.
Amen.
And I've been able to bounce back, been very resilient, and have accumulated a lot of success in the marketplace. So now I'm just at that place of where I want to bring others with me. I've always wanted to bring others with me, but as an educator, influencer, that's really what I bleed is the opportunities to teach, coach, train other people.
Now, tell me what all is encompassed with the marketplace. I know you talked about leaving the church sector into just. So, what exactly is the marketplace?
It's just really the public square, right? When we walk outside of our door, we are in the public square. So there are a lot of things that govern it and mold it. So it's not just business. Of course, it's politics, it's education, there's schools and there's hospitals, there are theaters, and there's so many things that make up the public square. All of it is just manufacturing, molding ideas, which mold the minds and the hearts of people. And that's really what influence is. I know that the buzzword of the 21st century has kind of been leadership and impact, but more than anything, it's leadership. It's how it's moving and swaying people, changing people's mindsets and attitudes and premonitions. I know mine has been shifted so much in the last 10 years. Things that I used to believe, I don't believe anymore. So yeah.
That's interesting. I love that you said that, because one of my favorite speakers is Simon Sinek, and he talks about infinite versus finite. And a lot of us have finite visions where we think there's an end, where really it's infinite. You have to constantly evolve and grow. So how do you keep yourself so fresh and open to new ideas and things? Are you constantly looking for feedback from others, or are you doing research? What are some of your strategies?
Yeah, I won't drink my own Kool-Aid, for one. Right? When people call me experts and an expert, never that. I am just a master student, and always looking for opportunities to sit at other people's feet or in the audience of someone else, without looking for that preferential treatment, right? And because of who I am and where I've been and stages that I've been on, and interviews like this that I've been on, like none of that is my fame. My fame, I want it to be, my legacy to be, is that I influenced others to move towards their destiny and their purpose.
Wow. And speaking of that, how do you dominate your marketplace? I love that you brought up being a master student, because I think that in my experience in life, that is really how you become your very best. It's constantly learning, constantly evolving and growing, especially in communications. And with you having a background in the divine, being a pastor, I mean, how else? That to me is the ultimate communicator. When I was competing for the World Championship of Public Speaking, I would watch pastors, comedians, and those were the best people to kind of find how to be effective communicators.
Yeah, they remain to be my favorite public speakers today. Every day I'm YouTubing pastors that are typically ones that are older and dead, but there's some that are still alive that really have something significant to say, and they say it very, very well. They deliver it well. But yeah, to
Mhm.
answer the question in regards to dominating the marketplace, because the marketplace is that place where ideas are molded and they influence the hearts, the minds, the decisions of others. I think it's really opportunity for us to flip the script since we spend so much of our time in the marketplace. For many of us, it's half of our day we spend in that public square, and there's so many things vying for our attention, vying for our resources, our monetary resources, and other resources. So it's just really a flip in the script on that. It was really the mission of I don't even want to sound preachy, but he's just my when I talk about business heroes, Jesus is he's like chief CEO. His
Amen. Amen.
yeah, his announcement in the public square, all of his announcements were in the
Mm,
public square. His first miracle was in the public square. He did very little in the synagogue. When he did, he went with a whip and turning tables over. Well, it was just because the politicians and the priests were very, very corrupt people. And he just wanted to bankrupt everything,
mm.
government, all society, ideas about healing and medicine and, you know, so he was just an industry disruptor by dominating the space that he was in.
Wow.
And so if he
That is
could
a
do
great
it and he
example.
did, we absolutely can do it. We can dominate all of the spaces that we and spheres that we occupy.
Wow. So that is powerful. You're right. Jesus is the ultimate teacher that we can look forward to.
Absolutely.
Now, what are some things that we can do in our daily lives right now to start dominating our marketplace?
I think first of all is people just have to get clear on their purpose. Even when it comes to how we take care of ourselves, right? In job, right? And the average American, I'm just talking about Americans right now, because I deal with people on an international basis, absolutely hate their job, absolutely hate it, right?
Mm,
It
mhm.
is just a means to an end, right?
Yes.
And I mean those ends, as my mom used to say, don't even really meet. She said they wave at each other, but they never really come together.
That's a good one. The ends
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
meet.
yeah. And so it's really just finding that thing that you really were created to do and immerse yourself in as much training as you can.
Mm,
That's really really it. I like I said, I am a student of everything that catches my attention as I become more aware of my skill sets and new interests. I just dive myself into training, invest in myself. I think that's really really key. Most people will not invest in themselves. We'll talk about that in a moment because I taught trading and investing classes for a long, long time. Traveled the country doing that as well, and
wow.
just really came into this revelation. I saw many people who wanted to jump in the markets, but had never really invested in themselves first, and it's such a
Mm.
mistake.
That is absolutely true. And I think a lot of times we don't invest in ourselves to your point. We get so caught up on that 9 to 5, 40-hour work week grind and don't realize that when there's a lot of Americans, you've retired, you have Social Security, and you're still having to work. But if
Right.
you would have done some investing, that could have supplemented things.
Absolutely.
And so,
Absolutely.
how does that transfer into people's industries? Like, what do you do to help dominate if you're like, is it universal? So, if you're in more of a government sector versus the public sector, are there things that you would recommend that are universal to dominate your industry?
Yeah, it's just service. That was it. That's why it's called ministry in the industry. It's really just a
Mhm.
place of service. Ministry is just that. It's not necessarily preaching. When we first put that out, there was a lot of kickback on that because, and I really had to define it. And I told people, listen, when Jesus gave us the Great Commission, he told us that in His name we would do what we would do, accomplish what we would accomplish, and that's not using His name; it's going in His name. And so, why, especially Christians, have this divide from their faith and their work is they say, "Well, I can't use the name of Jesus in a boardroom," and you don't need to. You just need to go in His name, right? So it's just really having the industry intelligence, understanding how the industry works. The formula that we put together is understand the industry, create an artistry. That's your brand. That's your unique expression, and then form some kind of mastery in it, and then then service. Just give it away. That's the ministry. So it's the industry. Move it into some type of artistry that makes you unique. That's your brand. Move into mastery, right? Where you are the I'm using the word expert, although I don't like to be called one. And then the ministry, it's just a service. You remember those four things, you'll dominate your market space.
I love that. I loved how you talked about the artistry of it as well. And
Yeah.
then besides, so that is a really good um, like level set of where you start with that. Now, what are some of the other things that you all do at Influence Me Institute to talk about how you can dominate the marketplace?
Of course, we love the because we are an institution, right? So we love teaching. I love teaching.
Mhm.
Great friend of mine who's actually down in the Fort Lauderdale area where I am now, Marcus Y. Rozier, who kind of has the same track, was on the trajectory of being a pastor and just went into the marketplace. But he and I were talking one day, and he said to me, he said, Eric, people are addicted to information but allergic to action.
Wow. Can
And
you say that one more time? That is
people
powerful.
are addicted to information and allergic to action.
Wow. That's
And he said that to me maybe a decade ago. I've never forgotten it. And so I thought, well, what's my role and responsibility in that? And so with my business partner, Angela, who you know very well, Angela
yeah,
Moten,
she's watching. What's that?
yeah, we wanted to start creating these learning and activation cultures so that
I
you would
love
not just come in and learn, but it would be a live immersive experience. There would be some role playing and things like that. But at the end, also, because we are people of faith, there would be some activation. Now, it's not church
that.
necessarily where you're going to be laid out on the floor like Sunday morning. We'll leave that to your pastor. But we did just want to maybe prophesy and speak and activate, overcome some of the mental blocks and blind spots that people deal with, so that when they leave our experiences, they're ready to start activating what we've imparted into them.
Wow, that's powerful. I love that because that's true. We are information hoarders. We get all the information and we don't activate. So
Yeah.
that's powerful. Now, how does this all play into economics when you talk about marketplace and domination?
This is probably most dear to my heart is economics. And one of the things I've said to individuals, especially when I was teaching trading and investing, was that the money controls every area of our lives. Cars we drive, homes we live in, clothes that we wear, the food that we eat, where we send our children to, how we contribute to philanthropic and humanitarian causes. It's a matter of economics. So it has to really become one of those primary things in our lives, but we have to really figure out how that works. How do we have an abundance of it? And so it's really about understanding income systems and income strategies. So that we can move into what we call economic dignity. We are all CEOs, every one of us. We are CEOs, not chief executive officers. We are creators of economic opportunities. We actually have the wherewithal to create our own economies. We're involved in some stuff right now where we're doing that, and it takes time for it to happen, right? But there's the thing that we actually want to do is to create the kind of money velocity, income velocity, where we never ever have to be what scripture says. We don't have to be the lender. We could always be the borrower. We could be the head and not the tail. Economic dignity is really about all people having equal access to best resources. If we're expecting the government to legislate that, to distribute and make sure that we have access to the best schools, the best hospitals,
Mm,
the best career opportunities,
but we can't just.
yeah, can't do it.
Yeah.
So
You
that's
gotta
why
make your own.
marketplace domination is so important. When we dominate our sphere, when we dominate our market, we actually control our economics. We create our economies. That's very scriptural. It's actually a very, very, I won't say Jewish, but we know that most of the text leans towards the Jews. It's just how they were built out. They built their own
Mhm.
economies. The first century church,
And
the
to be
people brought everything common. They brought everything to the apostles' feet. The apostles had to have a CEO mindset to build the kind of systems where in that text it says all men had all things common. No one lacked for anything. And
Wow.
so either you read the text like a fairy tale or you read it as a model for what can be
Mm.
real in your life. I choose the latter.
Wow, I like that. Read it as a fairy tale or a model. But when you talked about economic and income velocity, that comes into that activation. We
Right.
get information, we sit on it, we don't activate. And if you're not activating, you can't have velocity and get some
Absolutely.
traction. So that is powerful. Now, what was the final concept of having marketplace domination in your marketplace? We talked about ministry in the industries, economic dignity, and then the last thing that you were sharing with us.
Career is your calling.
Mm,
It is absolutely. Otherwise, you're just kind of, and I tell this story a lot as well. I'm a storyteller, if you don't know already, of how my mom's untimely death. I was 17. My mom passed away almost 1 month to the day that I graduated from high school.
wow.
I was considered my best friend. I
Mm,
miss her dearly. Her birthday was last month, and it's been 27 years. I cried like she passed away yesterday.
wow.
Um, she was just that much of an impact in my life. But my mom's untimely death process started on her job, and she had a stroke, a brain aneurysm, and that was on a Tuesday. That Thursday, she was pronounced dead.
Wow.
And I remember, and I know some of my siblings are watching this. I remember how my mom talked about how she hated her job. It was so stressful, right? It was
Mm,
one of those things she did to provide for her family. And she had accumulated and moved up, rather ascended to being a supervisor and very well known, very well respected. But she just really, it wasn't mom's calling. That really wasn't what mom was designed to do. And I think we all have been guilty of
yes.
giving our lives, just not time, but really pouring our lives into things just to get a paycheck at the end of the day to take care of our family. And that has been called and deemed honorable. It's called doing what you got to do. And I never read that as what I had to just do whatever I had to do to get by. It's really
Yeah.
just understanding, why do I exist today?
Wow.
Why wasn't I conceived and born in the first century? Right? Why am I alive in 2020? Right?
Mm,
What is it I'm called to do? How am I called to serve these times? And once you figure that out, then you have to figure out how to monetize it. How to monetize it.
mm,
And it's not even just starting business. I used to say that a lot, and I thought, if you start a business, and people say this a lot, fire your boss, become your own boss, start your own business.
yeah.
Um, but you're going to have employees. And the way that you diss a job and talk about a job, is that how you think about your employees? So I realize everybody's not called to own a business, but everyone has a calling.
Yes.
And if you just get into that vein, tap into it, and be known for the problems you solve for other people,
Wow.
and just again know how to monetize it, how to demand that proper compensation.
Wow. Now, I know a lot of people, and first of all, let me just give you my deepest condolences for the loss of your mom. And I lost my father at 19. So I understand that pain of losing a parent and that rock, especially in such a critical time in your life. You still need that guidance and stuff. So I definitely can. And what you said about your mom really touched me, because my father was also such a hard worker, and that was how they were just ingrained and bred to, you work, 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 work. Work, you retire one job. My dad did 23 years in the military and then worked another job. And to your point, what is your calling? Why are we here? Now, when you say monetize it, I know a lot of people get in these spaces where you don't feel, I don't want to say you don't feel worthy, but you don't really know how to transition into monetizing your calling. What are some recommendations you have for those who are in that springboard of, I do want to do my calling, I want to follow this, but I'm not really sure if I have the confidence to try to monetize it?
Yeah, just really, really learning business.
Mhm.
Business is really about systems, and I think most of us don't even know how to put systems together, right?
Wow.
There are a lot of entrepreneurs who are just that. They are entrepreneurs. They do not own and operate a business at all, right? Because they do not know how to systematize the process. They have a product, they have a service, but to say that they're really a business, They are not
Mm,
a business. And what makes Apple Apple and what makes Ford Ford is their business processes, right? And so you have to really have systems thinking is how do I deliver my product, my services to people the fastest way, right? With the highest levels of service. Those are really part of building out those systems. How do I attract a high talent team, right? Because you
wow,
can't do everything. You can't be everything. I say it all the time. Solopreneurs are dying breeds, right? So
wow.
building teams, recruiting talent, negotiating, and all those things are part of really just building out a business.
That is really powerful. And just to share a golden nugget, you, Angela, and Lydia, we did a mastermind for my fledgling business about a year ago, and I remember you gave me some really impactful things about just what do you want to do and focus on being the best in that. And I remember you saying, write that $10,000 speech, which I better get back to that, right? Write that $10,000 speech. So that is really powerful. Now you're starting to dominate your marketplace. How do you remain in domination, or how do you even know if you are dominating it? Like, what are the litmus tests to know if you're doing the right thing or you're in the right space?
You're in high demand. When you're in high demand, and it's not even just really about fame more than anything. I think a lot of people are famous and still, and I use this word with sensitivity, broke, right? But it's really just being in high demand, being preferred, I guess if I could say it like that, and then continuing to reinvent yourself. I
Mm,
continue to go through constant reinvention.
mm,
Um, and yeah, you have to get over yourself. Like I said, you can't drink your own Kool-Aid. You really, really cannot. Um, and because I just know too many people who are just operating in even a 2000 mindset, 2000 mindset in
wow,
2020. And when we should even be operating in a 2020 mindset, we actually should be in a 2025 or a 2050 mindset, right?
wow.
The ability to see into the future. One of my favorite books is The Anticipatory Organization by Daniel
I'll
Burris.
have to check that out.
The
Anticipatory
Anticipatory Organization.
organization. Okay.
And it's just understanding trends, the techniques before they happen. And the way to predict the future, Abraham Lincoln said, is to create it.
That's true. That is very true. Now, how, like with predicting the future, obviously technology is a huge part of that. So, how do you incorporate social media and different new technologies into dominating your marketplace?
For me, it's always lean those particular things of identifying your strengths and your weaknesses. For me, social media is not one of my strengths. As a matter of fact, I
Mm,
just recently, at the behest of my children, my five amazing daughters, who said, "Dad, why aren't you on Facebook?" And I said, "Well, it's one of those places I choose not to be, and hadn't been on Facebook for maybe 7 or 8 years. Deactivated the page, couldn't remember the login. It was just because I was annoyed by the narratives I was seeing. And
mm.
my baby daughter, who will be 18 in a few days, said to me,
Aw.
you do realize you can filter that, right? You don't have to see what's on the wall. You get to determine. I was like, yeah, that makes sense. So what you want to do is leverage your strengths and
Mm.
outsource your weaknesses where you're not strong in. I wouldn't dare try to give any advice on social media. I know it's a tool that's necessary. um, yeah, where it's going, how it's trending. I kind of really just kind of look to my young children. I'm just blessed to still have some young kids that can kind of put their hands on top of my hand. I think that's important. That
Mm.
cross generation
I
mentorship.
agree. Cross
Yeah,
generation mentorship is so important, and building that respect and understanding the culture of the different generations. I feel
absolutely.
like it's great. And kudos to you for being not only a parent that is willing to open, because I think a lot of us still have that mentality where your parents feel like I'm grown. I don't care how grown you are, I'm still grown, and
Yeah.
they're not open to it. And I think that's so important to help build that velocity, like you said, in so many different areas of our lives.
Not just in parenting. I mean, I sit in the marketplace. I see people
Mm,
who are tenured, who are just really, again, drinking their Kool-Aid, and they're out of date. They have no updates in revelation. They have no updates in the trends of the market or the industry. And just because they've been loyal and they've been faithful, they continue to occupy space and they try to teach young, growing, fresh minds something that is just outdated, instead of just allowing them to update them on new revelations. And I'm always looking for upgraded and new insights on new trends on all things, so that I'm relevant. You can't be an influencer and not be relevant. It's just impossible.
No, I do agree with you. And I'm putting up something. So for those of you listening, thank you. We've had some great comments in the chat. I see some of your baby girls are in there. I think some of your siblings, of course, Angela, who's one of your business partners. But definitely check out the website, influence-me.org. And I know you said that social media is not your strength, but you are on LinkedIn and Facebook, which are great ways to leverage the marketplace and do that. Now, I love you kept saying, stop drinking your own Kool-Aid. So how can people do a Kool-Aid check? Like, how can you have that moment where self-realization where maybe I am drinking too much Kool-Aid? I mean, do you see that red around your lips, or what do you know? How do you know you're just too full of yourself?
When you just can't take advice, when you stop asking for advice.
That's a great
Yeah,
indicator.
I think that's it. Mike Murdoch says questions qualify you for answers. So
Wow.
I'm always looking for those opportunities to get into the presence of people who are years ahead of me, right?
Wow.
Who incomes are 10 times greater than mine. And I just want to learn from them, right? And I'm always asking the questions. I'm always thinking of questions to ask people all the time. Yeah.
I love how you said that, when you stop asking questions, when you stop, because I think we do get complacent. A lot of times we are in our daily lives and we don't realize that we are not open for feedback.
Yes. Absolutely.
Wow. Well, Eric, this has been such a phenomenal and enlightening conversation.
More for me than for you, believe me.
No, look at you. So I really appreciate it. What are some, and thank you everyone who's watching live and all of your great comments, but what would you have as some parting words for all of our listeners today?
I want us to learn really the coming together of all of this, right? We serve each other. There is a African venture capitalist. His name is Busi, and I'll mess up his last name, Imbo, who talks about why, in particularly, and I'm very Afrocentric, Black people don't make it. He talked about the crab pot mentality, and
Wow.
and he said it's really, really true. And he was talking about, he said, but it's really kind of how we've been programmed by society, right? And was that whenever we were enslaved, there was only really a few that were house Negroes. They were able to come out of the laborious fields and working in under that oppression. They were able to come into the house, dress nice, be close to master. And so that house Negro treated even his fellow darky very differently. And I'll give you a good example to kind of upgrade that. Those that remember the Cosby Show, there was a episode where Theo and Cockroach were going on Dance Mania. And it was just the mentality, right? They're in the green room, and the man comes out with a headset, who just happens to be Caucasian, and tells these two brothers that only one of you can come in. And that's kind of how we see it. When we see success, we only see that only one of us can go in.
Wow.
They're having this false humility moment where they're saying, no, you go in, no, you go in. And Theo explodes on Cockroach later because Cockroach said, okay, man, I'll see you later, right? And I think it was Ms. Huxtable who said to Theo, you should have said, we both going in there. You got to make room for both of us.
Yes.
You got to start seeing that there's room for all of us, right? Yeah. All of the movements in social rights and even in the Bible, there were movements of people moving together. Noah building for a people. Moses moving 4.5 million people out of oppression.
And that Red Sea.
Yeah, and it wasn't easy, but we've got to move together. We've got to learn that. We've got to learn how to synchronize. We've got to learn to keep pulling each other up. It's not just one of us coming in. If we can't both come in, we'll have to go create our own space.
Agreed. I love that. And on that, thank you. That's powerful. You're right. Let's create the spaces. There's room. There's enough success for all of us.
Amen. Absolutely.
So, thank you all for watching this edition of Speaker Circle. We appreciate you. Continue to like, share, and follow. Check Eric out. He's on LinkedIn as well as Facebook, and you can check out his website. Thank you again. Let's continue to grow together. Have an
Absolutely.
amazing evening, everyone.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you.